In a world increasingly affected by the consequences of climate change, a powerful movement is emerging, driven by the people and for the people. This is a story about civic engagement, a force that can empower communities to fight for environmental justice. But while some communities are beginning the fight for environmental justice, others are still fighting to have a voice. Across the state of Georgia, ordinary people are stepping up, organizing, and advocating for change. They understand that environmental issues are social issues affecting the most vulnerable among us.
We see voter suppression. We see it all over this country, and it is a sad day that it is visiting us here in Atlanta.
My name is Wanda Mosley. I'm the National Field Director at Black Voters Matter. We are a power-building organization. We work primarily in rural areas, and we are working with community members, particularly those at the grassroots level, to help them build power and to help them build infrastructure. We know that not having access to free and fair elections, not having the ability to elect people who center our communities, our needs, our issues, and who affirm our humanity is a huge problem for the Black community. When we look at the extreme voter suppression that we suffer here in Georgia, 6, 8, 9 hours in line to vote, couple that with the fact that our minimum wage is still only $5.15 an hour, we have created a situation where people literally cannot afford to vote.
What I have learned over time as a chaplain, as a pastoral counselor, as a leader in community, is to start with asking people what hurts. What's the pain? Now, it's usually so deep, so old, that we don't have names for it. But in order for us to begin to do the healing and advocacy work that we need to do for ourselves, lament and naming anger and frustration, and then framing how we will constructively engage our anger.
We can't even get this government, this country, people to acknowledge that the enslavement of African people of which we descend is the reason why this country is the most powerful nation, the richest nation. But at the same time, generation after generation, we have been primarily, majority of Black people, left in abject poverty. And there are no resources for us to quote unquote pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. But we always have money for war. We always have money for the other things that people believe are important. But we can't get a livable wage in this country, and we cannot get systems in place that are intended to help people who are struggling and people who have systemically been put in a place where we were not allowed to thrive and fully participate in the democracy of this country.
I started what I call community listening sessions. And the question was, what do you want? And so what we have been able to do has been encouraging folk to go to community meetings, go to city council meetings, join and have had people to join particular committees in the city council, come back and report. By showing up, city council began to do different things in the council area because they got rumors and word that we were challenging and testing and questioning. So they began to do some different kind of effectual things.
Today marks 1 year since President Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act.
Inflation Reduction Act.
Inflation Reduction Act.
The Inflation Reduction Act.
Since its passage 1 year ago, the Inflation Reduction Act has led to the announcement of 272 new clean energy projects nationwide, resulting in over 170,000 new jobs and generating over $278 billion in new investments for local communities. If spent wisely, we can use the $369 billion in climate and clean energy funding to reduce U.S. carbon emissions by 40% by 2030. We can also use these dollars to rectify long-time environmental injustices for communities of color and people earning a lower wage and ensure their voices are heard and valued in considering these new opportunities.
Georgia needs a Green New Deal because the climate crisis is here. It's impacting our people, our communities. We're seeing severe weather. We're seeing the rising of the seas. It is impacting people all over Georgia. And we can't wait. We have to take action now. It's going to be better for our pocketbooks, for our people, and certainly for our planet. We want to leave Georgia better than we found it. We want to leave it better for the next generation. And by building common cause here in DeKalb and Metro Atlanta and Georgia with communities and people all over America as well as all over the world, we can, through one voice and through one action, not only stop the climate crisis, reverse global warming, but create a more livable planet, a more equitable planet for all.
Across the board is a lot of levels of how climate change has directly affected farmers, not just here. I saw in the news where 5,000 cattle died or 3,000, something unheard of. So it's affecting the United States as a whole, people as a whole, and I don't really understand, why we're talking about it, and we got to debate about it, and I got to beg my congressman, I got to call my governor, I got to beg my senator, can you please help me out?
When people talk about sustainability, well, the first thing, in order for something to be sustainable, it has to be profitable. And so we have basically constantly reinvent ourselves to stay profitable, and then by staying profitable, then we're able to stay sustainable. But by working with NRCS, we were able to do cover crops. We do a lot of cover crops, and of course, we do a lot of trees, forestry also, to help with basically when it comes to conservation and climate. And so we basically believe in keeping the ground covered with cover crops or grass, or basically use practices while we're farming to not to disturb the soil.
It's just so confusing to say that we were awarded so much money in farming, and right here in my little county that's already said that it's in a disaster area does not have money to even give us a greenhouse. I don't understand it.
With the farm bill, with that money, we can able to take some of that money and be able to use to help us with some of the practices that we normally would do. It will have to be costing us, within the bottom line would reduce our profit margin.
The power of civic engagement lies in its ability to unite people from all walks of life. It amplifies the voices of those who are often marginalized and overlooked, ensuring that their concerns are not only heard, but acted upon.
There's so many layers to Black people, to poor people in rural areas that we have to hit before they can fully understand why it is that they need to care about a thing called environmental justice.
Learn from the people what they need so we can help them to devise and deliver.
It's so much more resources now that we can do, but we need the education, we need the help, we need mentors to help the farmers.
I would love to see more investments into the farming community. I would love to be able to have more youth come back to the farm.
I can't wait, and I know so many around the world can't wait, so let's take action now.
As we witness the strength of communities joining together, we are reminded that the fight for environmental justice is a collective endeavor, and the fight for social justice must continue. Through civic engagement, we can create a sustainable and equitable future for all.
Climate change has altered landscapes and market practices for farmers across South Georgia. Today, small farmers are struggling to keep up.
We used to plant watermelons and they were ready by the 4th of July, and that was the day. Now, because of the changes in the weather, the watermelons are ready earlier And we have to adjust to the weather because the weather will not adjust to us.
Water, the watermelon crop, the peach crop. We now have to farm differently because of climate change. We need the resources. We need the machinery, the equipment.
Thankfully, Congress can help. The Farm Bill could help rural farmers keep their farms running and modernize their operations. Tell Congress to keep climate conservation funding in the Farm Bill for clean energy and our small farmers.